They can
anyone
only
watch?
hear
Anyone listening?
Yes.
Anyone listening?
If ever you... It's still there.
It's still there. Why can't I get rid of it? Right, here we go. Hello and welcome to the Bones Horror Podcast. This is our episode 88, A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. Okay. I've changed my views on this film after watching it again, but I look forward to telling you about it. So, who have we got with us this week? We got Larry.
Hello.
And we got Ewan.
Hello.
And there's no Jess at the moment. She was stock taking for free. So she's carrying out a stock take, but not being paid for it. Instead of coming on the Bones Horror Podcast. Craziness. That's what I said anyway. So I think she was helping out her friend. So she'll be back next week. And I think she sorted her computer out as well. So
yeah. Did she go through did I can't remember, but if Jess has watched this, it'd be interesting to see what she went through, because I know there's a bit of a struggle with like the delivery and stuff, wasn't it? Or like when it was going to arrive.
I think it got sent somewhere else and stuff, and then a dog got ill, and there was lots of things going on. But yeah, she's got it and she installed it, and I think it works really well now. So
sick.
She got a new graphics card, and she could have just bought an Xbox Series X and been done with it. But
string through the Xbox.
Well, I don't know, maybe. So what we've been up to? I have been working a lot. I haven't really done too much last week. I even watched too much either. Been a funny week, really. But yeah, because I'm working full on at the moment, so I'm not getting a lot of time to do anything else. So there's bits and pieces of work in the evening as well. So yeah, a bit of a crap one. Larry, what you been up to?
So I was in London when the last podcast was on, coming back from London, and did some film. Excuses. It's good though. I was watching in the car, and at one point we went through a tunnel, and it was so funny because like I had put in a comment, and I came out of the tunnel because obviously the internet goes in the tunnel, and as it comes back on, all I hear is like, he's written that comment twice. Why has he done it twice? I was like, have I? Look at my phone, and it's just spammed it. I was like, oh shit. But no, yeah, mainly writing. I've watched a few things, and yeah, that is pretty much it. Not too much.
Yes, but yeah, I found it's just been an empty week, really. But
it's too hot. It's too hot. That's why.
It's too hot. Yeah.
Oh, I like it being hot. So, Ewan, what you been up to?
Well, I've mainly I was very about like I don't know, a week ago. I was quite honoured to receive an email from the people at Sight and Sound. For an American listeners, that's a sort of British film magazine. Nice. And they were wanting a selection for, because they do this thing every 10 years of like the best films ever made. And they tend to poll like hundreds of people and hundreds of critics rather, and they asked me, and I was very flattered to be asked. But the problem with that, even though I love being asked and it's amazing, it does add a bit of pressure to figure out what your favorite films of all time are, or what you consider the best films of all time.
I mean, Swamp Ape had to be number one. Please tell me you sent that back to them.
Like Swamp Ape number one, that'd be a worthy mention, wouldn't it? Would have been one of
the list and then worthy mentions.
Yeah,
that'd be it.
Yeah. So I've been spending this week just rewatching films which, because I've already established like my top 5 or 6 sort of set in stone kind of selections, but I'm not so sure about those last 4. And those last 4 have been like mental in my head about trying to establish. So I've just been rewatching what films that I consider, and it's really weird watching films with the thing in your head, comparing them to all the other great films out there, and sort of in your head, like, is this one of the greatest films of all time? Usually you don't watch films like that, and it's really weird, because like even like 5-star films that I've been watching, I was like, oh, this doesn't quite make the grade, you know. But no, it's been, as you say, it's been a bit of an empty week. It's been really hot.
What was it?
Yeah.
But we're interested now. The listeners will be interested. Anyone watching will be interested to know what your actual top films are.
Yeah, what have you got so far? If you haven't completely,
what I've got so far. I mean, it's really difficult because one of their rules is that you can't, if the film is in a series, or the films are in a series, you have to put the individual films. So obviously, my top 3 are all Lord of the Rings movies.
Yes.
So there's that. I think Clockwork Orange, Tree of Life, which I know nobody likes except for me.
Tree of Life. That's not.
Sorry, I remember at university, Lawrence, you saying it was absolute shit.
No, granted, I will admit, like when I first watched it, I wasn't because I like in college had to look at art films and you know, experimental films, and I really, as I've talked to you about, like, you know, with David Lynch, I had to watch a lot of his, not his major films, but other smaller short films. So I wasn't really a big experimental fan, but I think as I've got older and watched, like, you know, a lot of like A24 films and experimental and all that, I actually have to say, like, I've got it right here. It's like, ironically, it's right there.
Oh, yeah, amazing.
Hold on. Just to prove to the
it's the steelbook edition, no longer.
Oh, what steelbook we got today?
Nice.
There you go.
Oh, that's not a steelbook.
No, it's a piece of shit. No, I'm joking.
And there's other stuff like Ikaru, the Akira Kurosawa movie. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I really want to put The Shining on there, but
you should.
Yeah, I know. It's just having 2 Kubricks in one list. I'm sure others will do the same, and I'm sure The Shining won't be as common as like 2001 and Doctor Strangelove or whatever, because those tend to be on the list more than The Shining. So I might just put The Shining on.
Jaws?
Jurassic Park. Yeah, I was going to say Jaws, Jurassic Park.
No, I haven't got any Spielbergs on there.
Okay.
Jason Takes Manhattan.
That's another thing, is that you realize how many directors you're just leaving out. Yeah. So I've left out Fincher, Scorsese, Tarantino.
What is it? Is it top 10 again? Sorry.
Yeah, top 10.
Top 10. It's tricky because you have to decide.
Yeah. And Mulholland Drive. Well, I have to decide between Mulholland Drive and Eraserhead, because I have to have a Lynch in there, but I'm not sure which one it is, which one it will be. Because Mulholland Drive like changed my life, but Eraserhead is also just an amazing film. So I'm going to rewatch Mulholland Drive. Maybe tonight. Maybe I'll do that tonight. Rewatch Mulholland Drive. But yeah. So I've been trying to sort of rack my brain, just trying to figure out where they should go on the list. And it's really hard because it's just, and I've seen on Twitter as well, loads of other people have been asked to do the poll, and they're having similar struggles. And apparently the common advice is just to go with your gut and just do that. But yeah, so that's what we're doing this week.
Excellent. Well, I was just writing something down, actually, and that might be quite important later. So, Freddy Krueger returns once again to terrorize the dreams of the remaining Dream Warriors, as well as those of a young woman who may be able to defeat him for good.
Sure she can.
So it was directed by, I've put Rennie Harlan. Is that right? That don't sound right. Who did Die Hard 2, Cliffhanger, and he was nominated for a Golden Raspberry for Exorcist: The Beginning. Don't know if you've seen that.
Is that a prequel version?
Yeah, there's 2 kind of came out at the same time. There was 2 of them. It's like they remade one of them. Really quite odd, and there's a story behind it, which I won't go into now. But I have watched it. I don't mind it. It's just a bit
shit.
Yeah, it's a bit shit.
Die Hard 2 was good though. Die Hard 2 was a good movie.
Die Hard 2 was good. I quite like Cliffhanger. hanging about on cliffs. You've seen
I like
that
the
one?
I like the opening scene of that.
Stallone, isn't it? Is it Stallone?
Yeah. It's the opening scene that gets me for that film. That one's always quite good. Where they're hanging over the... Well, no, her clip breaks, doesn't it? And he can't hang on to her.
The old clip breaks, and it all ends. So Robert Englund is Freddy Krueger. Tuesday night is Christian.
Sorry, that name always makes me laugh.
It's brilliant, isn't it? Tuesday night.
Mm.
As Kristen Parker. It's a new actress from the third one. Is that right? She took over.
Yeah,
so
in the third one, Patricia Arquette, and here it's Tuesday night. Interesting choice. I'm assuming Arquette had like other obligations that she made her.
I think she was. I read, and it might not be true, that she was heavily pregnant.
Oh well, that probably would it. Well, I'd explain it if it was true.
I mean, she was 18. That's quite young to be. Well, I don't want to,
No, to their own. My parents
their own. Yeah, sure. Yeah,
it could have been. It could have been that and like a scheduling thing as well, though. I imagine.
But she was doing. Because I looked on her IMDb and she was doing like 3 other movies in the same year. So it's
probably a scheduling thing then.
Maybe, she might have been playing pregnant women in those films. You don't know, do you?
Maybe, yeah.
Just all of them.
There was high demand for those roles, yeah.
You know me, I tried this week. I've tried to do a little bit more research because last week I didn't do as much as I sometimes do. And then Darry was in London, Jess didn't turn up, and I was kind of relied heavily on you to talk for most of it. So this week I've done a little bit more research. So budget $6.5 million. Box office $49 million. Rotten Tomato. What do you reckon?
That's tricky. Because I want to say it's going to be in the 60s. Because I don't think this is the worst of the sequels. So I think people might maybe have been a bit more lenient with it, especially as time's gone on.
Yeah.
But I don't know because I know that it wasn't.
I reckon 50s, maybe. 50s,
you think 50s?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be 50s, isn't it?
52. Yeah.
Damn it.
And I'm going to be really honest. I watched this with my middle one because he tends to watch stuff. Only because, like I say, well, I'll bring some sweets and stuff in and we'll watch it in my office. And it's kind of nice. And he really likes it. And I think I've only seen this. May have been the 3rd time. I watched my new Blu-ray box set, so there's a few extra bits on it. But I watched that, and I really like it. I really like it for what it is. I didn't like the character change particularly, but I like the Freddy stuff a lot, and I love some of the kills. The waterbed, especially.
Cockroach.
Cockroach was my favourite.
For the food at the table as well. That's really good.
Yeah.
Obviously, we'll go into it all, but like the films get really creative in the deaths, I think, as they go on. But it's just a shame the story lacks.
Yeah.
We've got a few more of these to do, haven't we, in this run of films that we're doing? So we've got 5, 6, 7. I think we're doing Freddy, Jason, then we're doing the remake again. And I think we'd be heading towards 100 then.
Yes.
But yeah, so I just bullet points and bits as usual. So I put Freddy as a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that.
I was actually curious about that. I wonder if
he was very attractive.
Yeah, but I wonder. It reminded me of that scene in The Dark Knight, and I wonder if Chris Nolan watched that and just like was like, oh yeah, that's for Joker.
Yeah.
Probably.
He looked actually quite feminine though, didn't he, Freddy? In that. Another bullet point was dog piss.
Which, that was an interesting scene. That's where, in order to, it was a weird scene where, in order to get Freddy back from what happened in the last film, where he was essentially his bones were reburied.
Yeah.
Is it I can't remember his name now. Is it Kaikade or something? He's like drawn back into that scrapyard with his dog in the dream. And then the dog turns very aggressive and goes to the patch where Freddy was buried, pisses on it. The piss turns to fire, and then the ground opens up where Freddy's bones were, and then Freddy's bones reconnect, and the skin tissue reforms, and Freddy's back.
All because of some dog piss.
Well, it's like it's in the dream though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in the dream world. Is it? I mean, it's interesting with general this film when we'll get to this in more detail. But I found that as you were saying before, that the practical effects are really, really good, and there's so many great ideas about how to kill all these characters and stuff. But my issue was that because the story is not that interesting, there's not much of a plot, and the characters are just not that interesting either. I found it very not very memorable. I had to try and rack my brain for the various things that happened.
I find the way I look at this one is it's almost like Alien 3 because it's
I haven't seen Alien 3.
Oh right, okay, so it's just a very similar kind of track in that. I mean, I don't know if can we go into spoilers now? If I say spoilers, just in case if you haven't seen it, but what I love about the film, which I think is actually quite effective, is because obviously I wasn't on the last podcast, but what I really like about Dream Warriors is that it kind of brings these characters together, and it's like, we've got to defeat Freddy. And what I quite like about this one is that it doesn't hold back, and it just goes, oh yeah, all those characters that you really, if you did grow to like them, yeah, fuck them, they're dead. It's like Freddy's coming for them, and I like that, but I agree. That in itself is a good concept, but similar to Alien 3, I think it fails so massively on its story that to me it's like, yeah, that's cool in a concept, and the deaths are cool, and they're really well done, and just like Dream Warriors, they have good practical effects mixed with some CGI stuff. But yeah, it's just the story, and that's kind of how it goes throughout all of the next ones, is that they retain the good effects, but the story just kind of goes down.
But it's funny what you said about them killing off essentially the three characters who survived the third one. Yeah. I actually don't like it.
Really? Okay.
I don't like it when movies do this in general. Is it in terms of sequel stuff? It's the same with the Friday the 13th Part 2, where the main character from the first one just dies in the first 10 minutes, or is killed in the first 10 minutes. It annoys me because it's like, well, why did I watch the previous film then? Because I had this problem before, although I think they did it quite well in the run up to the Force Awakens, when that was about to be released. It was heavily rumored that a character will die. And actually, I think I might have been talking to you, Lawrence, about it.
Yeah, we were probably in the outside bit in the smoking area, and we were like, "Who's going to die?" Because we all heard that there's one character, or
who did
possibly
die?
two.
Well, it was Harrison. Harrison, for worse, his name.
I know they killed them all off, didn't they? Pretty much.
Well, throughout the trilogy, but yeah, in this first film, it was hinted at that one character was, or two characters, I can't remember what we were just saying in uni, but it was hinted at that characters were gonna die, and we were all very much speculating of who it was going to be.
Yeah, but to be honest, I thought they did it quite well in the film, but in the run up to it, and I feel like it's the same with Friday the 13th, same with this, is that it was kind of like we had an arc before, and it was great, and it was enjoyable, and now you're completely scrapping that arc in favor of this newer one, which I don't think is as effective, because I don't think the new characters are as interesting as the older characters.
See, I agree with you completely on that. Completely.
And just more on that, one of the issues I found with the film is that it felt like a first draft of the script, or at least it needed another draft in order to sort of finesse it.
Yeah, it felt a bit rushed.
I looked this up actually. It's a classic case, and I've talked about this on weeks before, where the behind the scenes is more interesting than the film itself, because at the time with all of these movies there's an interesting story behind them, and with this one they got a new director, and apparently Bob Shea, who was the producer, I'm coming to the conclusion that he's probably an arsehole, or at least he was at the time, because apparently he sat down with what would become the director. He was a Finnish guy, and
I remember this.
Yeah,
sorry,
apparently Bob Shea was just really xenophobic and just saying, "Oh, how can a Finnish person direct an American movie?" And it's just like, I'm sorry,
because this was the guy. The director had long blonde kind of hair. Yeah, no, but that's the thing, as you said, and as I was saying earlier, it's not the fact of the deaths that get me of like killing those characters. I actually quite like that as a story element, but the story that they're telling doesn't work. So it all doesn't form together well.
Yeah,
it's just pieces that are like, okay, great.
And it was weird because as I was like researching this, the director was saying ludicrous things. He was saying he came up with good ideas, like the faces in the pizza and stuff like that. Quite surreal.
I like that, the pizza bit. I was going to mention that. Yeah.
But he also said things like, I kind of think of Freddy as like a hero, like James Bond, and I'm just like, okay, I'm not entirely sure if I see that comparison, but whatever. But what was interesting is that they did have to make the film in a very short amount of time. I think they shot it in February and they had to get it done by August at least, or at least the start of the shooting was in February, and apparently they edited it in about 2 days for like test audiences. Part of the reason was that there was a writer's strike happening at the time, and obviously, as we've seen with so many films, notably Quantum of Solace, writer's strikes tend to ruin
Transformers 2 was another one.
Yeah, just tend to ruin movies that otherwise might have been good.
Is there not other people that can write stuff?
Well, no, but it's a strike, isn't it? So it's like that. It's almost like the train strikes. Like you could say there's another person to go on.
People that write and they're not allowed to. But how about I bet there's some talented people out there who are not. But this is
the thing.
The industry don't want to take those risks, I guess. Really.
Yeah, industry don't want to. But they also like the writers who were like credited, like did go into some meetings like in secret. Apparently they wore fake beards and stuff like that. These are just absurd methods. I don't know. That might be a rumor. I don't know, but it's like
I want it to be true.
Yeah, I want it to be true.
It's just like you two with your fake beards.
Yeah. Pop it off.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is that when you watch the film, it's like they because obviously when you first write a film, or at least in my experience, you tend to make it up as you go along, and then once you've done it for the first time, you're okay, let's make it good. That's the kind. I think that's the kind of usual route for a lot of writers. Whereas with this, as you're watching, it was like, okay, they keep on making stuff. I keep on making stuff up, especially in that second act. I actually think the first act and the third act are actually all right, but the middle act is just so much fumbling and so much like, okay, Freddy kills someone in a grotesque way again. Oh, okay, happens again, and there's no real plot development in any way. And then they think, okay, let's focus on this character. This character is interesting. Okay, let's build her up, and she's the Dream Master, Alice. And then once they got to that point, it actually became interesting. It's like, okay, this is a character arc where she's not very confident in herself, and then she becomes more confident, and that would have been interesting if that was placed at the start. And I think that's why I don't think the Dream Warriors should have, if not killed off. I feel like they shouldn't really have been involved, because I feel like if we just focused on the story of Alice, that would have been more interesting.
I do agree, but I feel as though what I quite like is the story that we're saying, which I completely agree is definitely the highlight, where you get invested and say, okay, she's the Dream Master. I actually think they shouldn't have added a bunch of other new characters. I think it should have almost been like a continuation where we follow that character with those friends that we know, and it's more impactful when they do die. Because then it's, we feel like, oh crap, this Freddy in Dream Warriors, yes, he killed a few of them. One notably, which I think I messaged into you guys about him missing her arm with the needles. Just completely, and then having to quickly reform them. But yeah, that's, I agree. Like it's one of those things where I think it feels, as you said, like a first draft. And someone's gone, like, written the last page, gone end, full stop, whipped it out, and then gone post, go.
Yeah, indeed.
I heard Wes Craven wrote a script for this, and
he might have done,
but they decided, because it was about kind of time loops and things, apparently, that it wasn't for them, and they wanted a kind of continuation from the third one, which this is, I think.
Yeah.
I mean,
it definitely is like a part 2, but just not done very well.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Also, you brought up the time loop thing. Again, I think that was a really good idea, but I suppose it's because I've seen it done in much more effective ways. I mean, we mention it every week, but in Stranger Things 4, they do it quite well. Whereas essentially they're repeating the same thing and going through the same thing, trying to change it. They also do it well in Life is Strange, the video game. They also Hideo Kojima did it for PT, if I'm not mistaken, where it just keeps repeating the same corridor over and over again. But here
Antenna,
I feel
antenna,
antenna, sure.
The unrenowned, yeah, okay,
yeah.
Did that happen in Tenet?
Yeah, there are time loops. Trust me, we'll do 100th episode.
I've seen
Lawrence
it.
explains
I've
Tenet.
seen it. I don't remember any time loops there, mate. I just but with, a lot of confusion. That's all I remember.
Oh no, God, yeah, don't let me. I'm gonna have to. If I was to go, I'm just like, temporal pincer is a time loop.
God, I've forgotten that.
Temporal pincer.
Temporal pincer.
That's a great name for a band, you know.
Yeah, but I feel like how it was like managed or choreographed in this film wasn't that great. I just was again, it's a very interesting idea. It's not used that well. I actually think it was Robert Englund's favorite thing that Freddy did was that, and you know, again, as I say, the idea is really good, but I feel like it wasn't directed that well. It just felt like they were like copied and pasted different scenes in like again into each other, which I wasn't that into. But as I say, the third act became quite good, and I think it sort of did that via the bodybuilder who gets killed in the most surreal way. I mean, it's obviously, I don't want to sound like this guy, but it's like Kafka's Metamorphosis, right? Where it's like the man who turns into a giant beetle. And I think Kafka is actually mentioned in one of the classrooms earlier on in the film, and it's and it's a really well. I wasn't sure what was happening at first, because also it does have the problem of like I'm not sure what kind of psychological association there is with this. I mean, maybe it's to do with vanity or whatever with the woman. But I did love the practical effects of just the you know, the creature's arms popping out of her arms, and when she's lifting the weights and stuff, that was really good. And then turn into a beetle, and then the weirdest thing of all, the camera like pans back, and it's the Freddy's holding a hotel box. I can't remember what line he used.
He's got there's loads of other bugs essentially in there stuck, because it's
and
like
then he crushes the box, and I thought that was quite good.
Can I ask a question about Robot Hand?
Robot Hand, yes. When was that?
It's in the classroom.
It's
in the class. Is that a robot's hand? It's like something. It looks like a robot's hand. And I didn't know why it was a robot's hand. Was that a fear of hers, or
was this the one of suck face part?
The girl, she sat in the classroom.
She has asthma.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And,
I wonder. I wonder if there was any like psychological like aspect to that, because I think on the whole they did the deaths quite well, and they sort of associate it with their fears. But sometimes you get certain instances where it's like, oh, they're just doing this because they just want to be weird and weirdly horrific, which I mean is fine to an extent, but you get to sort of territory like Nightmare 2 territory where it just doesn't work.
You mentioned earlier, like, that we say about Stranger Things a lot, like, on this podcast, but like, I think the reason why is because me personally, and I think a lot of people are in the same boat, is that as much as Stranger Things is its own thing, and it definitely is, and it's inspired definitely by, you know, the recent season is definitely inspired by Nightmare on Elm Street. I mean, Robert Englund shows up in the series as an homage anyway, but I think it's because it's the Nightmare on Elm Street sequel that we kind of wish we got in like elements of it, not obviously the Stranger Things story, but you know, I mean, in one of the deaths that I really like in the film is, you know, there's the girl who is forced to, she almost doesn't want to eat, and she's forced to, you know, sat around the dinner table with all these like kind of eccentric, you know, family members and friends of family members, and forced to like just and it's a scary thought of obviously going into sort of, you know, eating disorders and all that. But I feel like as much as the practical effects are great, it's not expanded upon enough where you can sit there and go, oh, okay. Whereas again, like, you know, looking at Stranger Things with Chrissy and stuff, you know, and I feel like that is expanded upon. And so I feel like, and it's a shame, because I feel like with each sequel that goes on, as I've said, and probably will repeat many a times on future podcasts, is that the deaths and the creativity of how they do them is not the issue. In fact, they are some of the like greatest practical effects of, like, you know, in horror and that in that era, but they lacks on the story. And it's a shame, because the story is what you really want to hook onto with the characters. And when you don't have that basis, you can, you know, it's like the Transformer films. You can have great effects, but if you're having robots go around saying racist kind of slurs, it's a bit like,
yeah.
Ooh,
It's also, yeah.
yeah. Just watch Transformers too.
I've seen Transformers. I don't remember any.
Please, just honestly, Kev, that will come back next podcast. Okay. Watch it. And just there's
I think I will. I do own them all on Blu-ray.
It was also interesting with this film is that of the, you know, nightmares that we've seen so far, it felt like the most stereotypically 80s, because it just because obviously, you know, you know, Lawrence and I weren't born in the 80s, but and so we have to rely on like different representation, including like Stranger Things that, you know, plays up the 80s elements more. But what's weird with Nightmare 4 is that it feels like one of those nostalgic films that are made now, except it actually was made, in the 80s. So even like the jackets, which are pretty much exactly the same in Stranger Things, but they're sort of I don't know what you call them, those jackets. The sort of
I know
high school jackets that you get.
Letterman jacket.
Maybe. Yeah. So you got those. You got the big hair. I mean, Tanya, not Tanya Knight. What's her face? Tuesday Night. She was like, she had like a sort of blondie-esque haircut, and just like, yeah, as I say, massive hair everywhere. And it just felt, that's why I was sort of liking it at first, because I was like, okay, they're leading into this like really, really 80s world. There's even a diner, and there's like interesting stuff happening. And then, yeah, I got really bored like during the second act. And as I've said before, it's like the main cardinal sin of making a horror film is that you can't make it boring.
No,
it's boring.
No,
There's
exactly.
no point. You can get away with it in our house movies, but you can't get away with it in horror movies.
No, but that's the thing. I completely agree, and especially if, like, with the Nightmare series, you know, that's why, and obviously when we get round to it on future podcasts, that's why with the reimagining that they did, it just was fucking boring. Like, and they really tried to do that thing where it's like, we're going to be psychological with it. And it's like, great, you just have to do a good job though. It's like you have to actually put the effort in.
There are a couple of good scenes in that film, but
I will happily disagree with that. I would rather go and watch the first one again than watch that.
Right. So we'll wrap this up a bit on this first bit. So would you recommend this to our watchers and listeners? Because for me, I would. I think it's fun. I think just to stick on and watch for an hour and a half and not take it too seriously and just enjoy the kill scenes and Freddy generally. I think it's a good film with no storyline. And I know you love a storyline. I know you both do. I can get away without a storyline in life, basically, half the time. Hence why I might enjoy a Transformers film. But I do like, you know, at times I love a story. But and we get to Cut of the Dead because that's an interesting story in a bit. But what do you think? You have watched Cut of the Dead, haven't you?
No.
No.
Larry, you. All right, we'll get to that in a minute. Okay.
Me personally, I think, and with the entire Nightmare series so far, where we're up to at the moment, I would recommend people, definitely watch the first one, skip the second one, watch the third one as if it's the sequel, and then watch this one, because I think that this should have been the 3 films, but I think the third film is I'm saying the third, it's the fourth, but if you're watching it like that, I think it's the weakest.
I like the second one.
I feel as though the second one is just such a fish out of water compared to every. It's like when we get to it again, it's like Freddy's New Nightmare, and I just bash my head against the table like, why have you done this? Like,
The main
what
character.
a stupid thing.
You know the main character from the second one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was speaking to Ewan about it last week, and I'm happy to book tickets, but he's coming to HorrorCon near us.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. You put it in the group chat. I'd be happy to
So-
go. I mean, HorrorCon. Woo.
And just you can tell him how shit you think he is.
Oh, I will. Oh, I will. What if
I think you were really great, Larry. His opinion differs from mine. Come on, Larry.
Colin Trevorrow could be next to him. I'd be like, don't think you're getting away. I'd be like, you sit right there, you little shit.
Like they're children.
Yeah. No, like don't get me wrong. It's definitely not the actor's fault in any way, shape, or form. I actually think as well what he was given. He
backtracking
does.
now, are we? Yeah.
Hey, we can go back and watch that podcast. I'm pretty sure. No, but it's not his fault. It's just it's the weird direction that they took 2 in. And then Dream Warriors for me is like the sequel that literally, if you miss 2, it does follow perfectly because Nancy's back, Freddy's still there, which they hinted at the end of the first one anyway. And then I think this film, the concept is good, but I just don't think it's executed all too well. And sadly, I don't mean on the, like I said, the effects or the deaths. It's just the story. I think it's just kind of a bit rushed, as we said.
So bonus.
I'd give it a solid 6, maybe because I don't think it's the worst one.
I want to go 7. So that kind of
If it
Ewan,
weren't for the
what are your-
deaths, it'd be lower.
Yeah, I know. Ewan.
Yeah, I'd give it 5. It was interesting. It was interesting what you were saying because I would mostly agree with you, Lawrence. I'd recommend the first one. Ignore the second one. Third one's pretty good and should be treated as the sequel. With this fourth one, I think it would be very much like watch it if you want to sort of thing.
You don't have to.
You don't have to. It's kind of, again, there were lots of interesting stuff there, and it's executed very well. I especially liked, as well as the Kafka cockroach, there's the scene with the souls in the body of Freddy that are trying to escape. Apparently they had to get they made like a 20-foot figure, and they got people inside the torso in order to do that whole thing. Again, the practical effects are probably more interesting story than maybe the screenwriting history.
Yes.
Again, you can see where the focus is on in this film. And then, but yeah, I was let down by the second act, which I found was boring, and I also really didn't like the way they killed Freddy, or at least not in terms of like the manner in which he died, but how he died, which was Alice shows him a mirror of himself, and I felt like that was a bit of a letdown considering how strong Freddy is in dreams, especially. And I also didn't quite understand the function of a dream master or the sort of mythos behind what the dream master is supposed to be. That wasn't really cleared up. So all in all, yeah, I'd give it 5. It's good. It's a decent effort, but I wouldn't be in a rush to watch it again.
No.
So probably about 6 boners then, really.
We definitely peaked after Dream Warriors.
Yeah, we're on our way down, and I expect from now on it's steadily going to go down and down.
Also, let me just say, if you're making a film and the first instinct is to rush it and set the deadline to a ridiculously early thing to the point where you rush everything and it can't possibly be as good, just rethink it. Even if you have to delay it a year in order for you to do it, just do that, because you'll get a better film out of it instead of like doing everything. I'll stop.
No. I completely agree. I think that if you're gonna rush it, you fucked it. You'd rather let it. What's the old phrase? It needs more time in the oven. If you're gonna put in your bloody food in for like 3 minutes and then go, I'm so hungry, I'll eat it raw. then there's something wrong with you.
Because it's that classic thing. It's like when we were at uni, Lawrence. I'm sure you as well, but I would get sometimes affronted when, like, I don't know, when we present a film to lecturers and we'd only have like a certain amount of time to do it in, and they'd criticize it that way. And obviously in your head you're going, well, I only had this amount of time to do it, and that's true. But you just have to. It just that can't be a rule. You can't just have that in.
Well, it's also a thing I think that we should mention as well, is that most productions, yes, they are like, if you just look at Marvel's recent San Diego Comic-Con Hall H, projects get put a date and they're like, we're aiming for this date, but 9 times out of 10, as most people know, those dates then get pushed back because they need more time. And the thing is that, it's one of those things where I'd say in most of the time, that is the case, but you can always tell when a film is just shoved out there quickly to hopefully bring its profit back money in. Yeah, exactly. Bring profit back in. But it's a shame.
It doesn't make sense either, because everyone by that point knew who Freddy was, and everyone would have been fine if it was delayed, and they
especially when it came out as well. Like, I'd say more today that people are more fussy to be like, I want to see this film. Is it coming out? Oh, it's been delayed again. It's with games as well. Whereas I'd say back in, especially 80s, 90s, I don't think people were there like, oh, it's been delayed by a couple of months.
No, I don't think anyone would really care. No, you're right.
Anyway, okay, so we move on to Dan's hot pick.
In the middle as well.
Dan's not on here tonight because he's traveling. He said he was abroad. He sent me a message saying he was abroad. So I don't know.
He was in Germany or somewhere.
Yeah, that's not really abroad. You still want to say? Why are you not still in? Like, when I think of abroad, I'm going abroad a boat or something. Or, I'm traveling the seas. I'm traveling the seas to get somewhere. So really, with England, you're going.
Did he get a boat?
He lives in Sweden. He might have got a boat.
And where's Germany?
just near it, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think there's a bit of water between. But I mean, this definition is nonsense anyway. But if we're going,
I got you. Because he might be going across a little bit of water instead of taking the long route.
Yeah,
the road.
He walked it. He could have walked it.
He might have. He said he was having plenty of sausage in Germany, and where else did he say he was going? Denmark. For some bacon. So here's
just for bacon.
Yes, he's enjoying it. So One Cut of the Dead. Okay, I think I said something else earlier, which I watched on Shudder, and it was a Japanese film, and it appears on Rotten Tomatoes with 100% rotten.
Oh wow!
It is. I think if you haven't seen it, Larry, this is one for you.
Can you give me the plot? Because I don't think I heard this.
Yes, I will give you a plot. Okay.
100% fair play.
Things go badly for a hack director and film crew shooting a low-budget zombie movie in an abandoned World War II Japanese facility when they are attacked by real zombies.
It's a found footage movie, isn't it?
It's definitely a found footage. I really can't say too much without giving the whole thing away, because I watched this with my younger one about 2-3 years ago, and it takes a hell of a twist, Larry.
When was it released?
3-4 years ago.
Yeah, okay. I was feeling it 2017 or something. It's weird as well, because I mentioned this last week, but I think it was the basis for a French remake by, I'm going to get his name wrong, but I think it's Michel Hazavas. Sorry, that's not his name, but it's a rough estimation. But he also did like The Artist and things like that.
Oh wow!
And for some reason he remade this film.
Well, he actually did.
He remade the film, and it opened the Cannes Film Festival this year, which is a really weird choice of film.
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen either movies. But apparently this one has been a bit divisive. Apparently it's quite fun, but apparently it's a bit divisive because they're just like, because I think they've increased the budget for the new
Okay.
one. And it's kind of like, well, why are you remaking it? The first one was fine. So yeah,
But I do like French horror, because we've talked about that a lot on the podcast with, like, you know, Martyrs and Switchblade Romance and all that. So I was thinking it could have gone in that vein, but it's probably not.
I don't think I can say too much about this, although I really like it. I've watched it a couple of times because you do need a second viewing.
Okay.
I might watch
this tonight.
There's a twist in it that you'll go, oh mate, I need to watch that again. And I know lots of people that have done that, and I literally maybe in one evening watched it twice.
Okay.
It is.
I'm intrigued.
Fantastic filmmaking, I think. Clever.
Is it scary?
No. Well, no, it has. It's a zombie movie, so it has elements of being scary for the first.
Is there a comedy element to this film?
Yeah, there's some comedy in it as well. It doesn't. There's no comedy for the first 35 minutes, I would say, because it plays out as it plays out. It's one shot. It's one shot for 35 minutes.
Okay.
So, and then there'll be some explaining and things. And anyway, I don't want to give too much away, but I know you will love this. I'm sure I've recommended it to you before.
Does it have a just out of curiosity? Does it have a similar? Obviously, I know two different like who made it, but does it have a similar vibe to like Wreck? Because you say it's like found footage. Okay, no, that's fair. Okay, I'll give it a watch tonight.
I think you need to see it, and I'll be interested to hear what you got to say about it. It's pity Dan's not in it. It's his pick. And you've seen it, Ewan, haven't you?
I haven't. No,
you have. So I'm just talking about Dan's hot pick, and there's nothing I can say because I will ruin it for you.
Well, we should. I think we
I will totally ruin. Yeah, I think we should.
Next podcast.
I've spoke about it on this podcast before, but I can't really say anything else. So I think we do it. Dan's next hot pick is Cold Prey from 2006, Norwegian film. I don't really know what that is. He did send me a link for Internet Plus, so I can forward that on to you if you need it.
Great service. Really look after their customers as well.
So we're all on it. It's a virtually a worldwide thing that we can all use and share.
Yeah.
So no subscriber fees as well.
No subscriber fees, and you can have as many people on one account as possible.
It's just
take the hint, Netflix. Take the hint.
That's the way forward. Thank you, Dan. So let's move on to what we've been watching this week.
What have you been watching?
No, seriously, what have you been watching?
I will start. Okay. So I've been using my kind of VPN and Tubi. And a film that kept popping up on things you might like to watch, which Tubi does for you, and it's all free, was Evil Bong.
I love the title.
I can already guess what's going to happen.
Yeah, no, I know.
So it's got
Shaggy.
What's his name?
Shaggy, Scooby-Doo, and the
Chong. Joe Cheech and Chong. You heard of those movies? Yeah, Up in Smoke. So it's got Chong's in it. Tommy Chong. Basically, it's a film about there's a guy. He's quite intelligent and that he needs to rent a room somewhere. So he replies to an advert and rents kind of a space in a flat with these 2 or 3 stoners. One of them a bit of a gym freak. They're all stoners, and they bought this bong online. So they bought this giant bong. It comes in a massive box. So every time they take a hit off the bong, a face kind of appears in it, and it after a while, I think it's maybe it's the first time they take a hit of a bong. They go into this dream world like thing where they're like half dead, half, and it's just mental. And the thing is, I started watching it, and there's like 8 or 9 films of this, and then there's even one called Right, and there's even ones where it crosses over, where it's like Gingerbread Man versus Evil Bong and stuff. And there's just loads of these films on TV. So I'm going to start attacking these over the next few weeks and talking about them on a regular basis. But they are very silly. They're quite funny, actually. As a Chong, you ever see Tommy Chong in a film? He's very, very funny. And the guys are funny and what they get up to and how disgusting they are, really. And it's a lot of fun. I don't know. I'm surprised you haven't seen it, Larry. I thought maybe
It just sounds like my uni experience.
That's what I was thinking as well. It just sounds like a lot of people I went to uni with who are clearly like stoned off their tits and they're just writing a screenplay.
The funny thing is,
not me. No.
It's just a lot of fun, and I sat there watching it thinking this is madness. But yeah, it's a comedy. There's no real horror elements to it. It sounds good to an Evil Bong, an Evil Bong 2 and 3, and they've all got mate. So I'll talk about the next one next. Next
I love the idea that there are nearly the same amount of films in that franchise as Nightmare on Elm Street.
There are. There probably maybe one or two, but there's spin-offs as well with Gingerbread Man versus Evil Bong. It's
just thinking of the Gingerbread Man in Shrek.
It's like that. Yeah. So anyway, I'll talk about that. So I would recommend Evil Bong 2B 3. It's good. Good shit. Started Ash vs Evil Dead Series 1, Episode 1. Finished that this week. Love that. The way it just draws you back in. But it is like, I'm not sure if Medieval or Army of Darkness ever actually happened in those films.
Well, I think they did. I think because before it came out, I know that I don't know if it was Bruce Campbell, but I know that one of the producers was talking about how the alternative ending for Army of Darkness was almost the inspiration to start Ash.
Yeah, because I can see that. But there is I think there's a 4K box set out at the moment, and I was looking at it. It's quite a lot of money, £70 or £80, and it had the first film and the second film, and then all 3 series, but no Army of Darkness. And I didn't know why that was. It was just kind of strange, isn't it?
Maybe they've,
maybe
they've
licensed
decided.
it.
Well, yeah, because it's owned. It might be a thing just of the companies that own it. Maybe with Ash versus the Evil Dead releasing the box set, they're not allowed to include that film because of the rights.
Yeah, that's why it seemed. But I would have loved that. What a box set that would have been. There was loads of pullouts, and it was quite a lot. And I'd probably buy it, but it didn't have that third one. So I watched that. Lots of fun. Great kills, head explosions. It's just
it is great.
Just draws you straight back into what I love about Ash. Really, him as an actor. That's why I watch it. It's because of him.
If it didn't have him, I don't think it would be nearly as
as
what it's done now.
On another note, the game, it's hard. I'm finding that really hard to play at the moment. Even there's like a little campaign mode where you can unlock things. And I'm struggling with that. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'll get one of the kids to do it for me or something. But to open up all the extra characters to play online, you can do some of the campaign bits and pieces, but it's really hard. It looks amazing.
Yeah.
The game itself, graphically, it looks amazing. Okay. H.P. Lovecraft at the Mountains of Madness. So I've been listening to that on Audible, which is amazing. And when I was listening to it, because I don't know if it might be my first time I've listened to it, and I've read it and probably not got as much information as I should have done. But it literally, I was thinking, this is the fog. Not the fog. The
thing.
The thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking it's the thing, and then it takes that little turn where they find the on the plane they find the old buildings in the sky. They're in the sky, aren't they, or in the mountains?
Yeah, yeah.
So that takes a totally different turn. So, but I can see why it influenced the thing, if I could say that. I know you got views on it, Larry.
Yeah. It's my favorite. I really love H.P. Lovecraft's work because of the fear of the unknown, and that's kind of inspired a lot of stuff that I write. But Mountains of Madness is my favorite that he's done. And John Carpenter, I think, as we were discussing it just a bit ago, John Carpenter, I think, made The Thing because it's the premise, really, but it's made more, I guess you could say, like, without the big blockbuster-esque sort of scale and you know, effect. And I think that The Thing is so good because of that. But as we said, we all were saying that there's talk of Guillermo del Toro, because that's his passion project.
That'd be amazing.
Because a lot of Guillermo del Toro's work in Pan's Labyrinth and even in Hellboy is very much inspired by Lovecraft's work of the fear of the unknown and dimensions and stuff that we just couldn't fathom. So I'm hoping, if that's true, I'm hoping he does it, because I think he could do a really good job of it. But yeah.
So I'm listening to that on the Audible kind of Lovecraft collection, which is about 52 hours long. So I'm making my way through it. I would highly recommend that to anyone. You've got this, like me, I work on my own a lot. Stick my headphones in, listen to Lovecraft. It's amazing. So if you've got that kind of job, get it on. Definitely worth a $5 or whatever it was. Wasn't a lot. And I think that's pretty much it for me. I've been listening to, there's a new Tarantino podcast that is really, really interesting called Video Archives. What I didn't realize, it's really good. But what I didn't realize that he's kind of brought up, there's a couple of, apparently he owned his own video store, like with his friend. They're both directors and things, or writers. And they both own that. And they both owned that, and then they knew everything about films. And then later on, there was a few like video stores that they really liked that shut down, and they bought their whole collections and things. Wow. And they're making their way through some of those movies. And I can't remember what the first one was. It'll come to me in a minute. But I think this one's based on 2 or 3, videos at the time, and it's really, really good, really interesting. Good hour and a half long, maybe a bit longer. Video Archives. It's both of those guys are really interesting anyway, and I had that from a podcast for a little bit, other than the usual ones. But I'm always searching for new podcasts, and they're kind of hard to come by, movie review ones anyway. But yeah, well worth a visit. So Video Archives, you'll find it straight away. Wish I could remember what the movie was. I think it was a horror, because it's a lot of horror and exploitation movies and things like that they're interested in. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've done this week. So I've rattled on enough. So
nice.
Ewan or Larry? So
it's up to you, Ewan.
Dan's on Copenhagen. Congrats, England, on football. God, love horror and out. So thank you, Dan.
Yes.
I know he's probably
enjoying
a sausage at the moment. So well done, Dan. And Dan's hot pick is Cold Prey next week. So hopefully he'll be back on again. The 5th boner. So Larry.
Okay, so it was mentioned earlier by Ewan. I asked Rhea if she had seen Lord of the Rings, and she was like, I've seen them ages ago. And I was like, right, but here's the big question. I was like, have you seen the correct versions? And she was like, no. So we've watched The Fellowship and The Two Towers, and we still have to watch.
Is this your wife or
my wife?
Very soon.
It's my imaginary friend.
It's okay.
But yeah, no, we and look, Ewan knows this. I same way I know Ewan does as well. Not only are the books amazing, but the films are fantastic, and they are amazing and similar to The Evil Dead. As I said, if you're watching Lord of the Rings and it's not extended, you're doing something wrong.
Just watch extended. I've got the extended. They're so good. I remember reading it when I was about 10. When I got that book, I was, oh my god, the size. I think it was The Hobbit I read first. And then I read The Lord of the Rings, and just humongous books for a 10-year-old.
They're great. They're great
And
though,
with long words in as well. Long words.
Yeah. Well, the extended editions just go into not only just the lore, but scenes that I think are very crucial. And obviously, yes, it's entertaining, but they're just they're great films and can rewatch them whenever. You know, they're perfect. So we've still got one more to go. Return of the King. But yeah,
what do you think of the Hobbits then?
because
I don't mind them. I don't mind them.
My only quarrel with it is that I wish that Peter Jackson just made one film, but made it, you know, release it at cinema, the cut down, and then release a like almost mega extended cut of like, you know, this is the Hobbit, you know, maybe like 4 hours or whatever. But I think that after the success of Lord of the Rings, I think that the company probably looked at it and went, oh, you're doing the Hobbit, and they were like, we want the same success that you did with Lord of the Rings. And it's a shame. It's a shame because
and I think it was originally meant to be 2 movies, and I feel you can actually see that as your. I keep in mind I'm a fan of the Hobbit movies. I know a lot of people aren't, and I understand. I do understand.
They're not bad. They're not bad.
Yeah.
It's just they're not. As
it's
good
just but I will admit that it would have been much better, and I feel like it would have been more universally acclaimed if it were just 2 movies, or as you say, one movie would have told the story. In fine way.
I like the dragon. I thought that was good.
Well, yeah, but this and happily I will say, like, they're not bad. Like, I think Benedict Cumberbatch, who plays the dragon, but also he plays Sauron, and I think he does a great job. I think the actor Martin Freeman, who plays Bilbo, and the returning cast, they're all great. And, you know, I know a lot of people go like, oh, there's not as much practical effects, but there are still practical effects, which are great. I just think that, sadly, I think that if it was done and it was, as we just said, 2 movies, part 1, part 2 sort of thing, or one big movie or whatever, I just think it would have benefited more. Whereas you can really tell by the 3rd film, it's like, can we just get there a bit quicker?
It's a big book. It is a large book, though.
I always found The Hobbit wasn't a large book. I always found
The Hobbit was like the Hobbit was 300 pages.
Yeah, it's a very small. Yeah, because
they a lot longer when I was a child.
Because they
the Battle of Five Armies is added on.
It's there, but it's not. It's not.
Yeah, it's nowhere near as big as what it is in the films for the 3rd film.
But they like put in elements essentially from like the Tolkien appendices, or the history that he wrote about him. So he embraced all the things like where Gandalf went. That's not in the book, but they managed to ascertain from what Tolkien wrote about it around it, which I quite liked. But it's but I can understand. I remember Cabby saying this to me. So I just don't understand why they put 3 movies out of a little tiny book. And I was like, fair enough. I like it, but fair, you know.
It's enjoyable, and definitely, like, you know, we own the extendeds of them as well, because again, if you're going to watch them the way, you know, the similar with the Lord of the Rings. But yeah, and then speeding for a bit, watched Alien and Alien 1, Predator, because I'm excited for the new Predator that's coming out.
When's that out?
This Friday on Disney.
Well, I've got Disney at the moment, so
yeah, so this Friday coming up. It'll be out. Okay. So the 5th of August.
So we can talk about that next weekend, I expect. So I'll probably
and then this wasn't one I watched, but to give a bit of a prelude, we have, obviously, for the podcast, we have our group chat, and Kev had put it by email as well, and Kev had put in about H.P. Lovecraft at the Mountains of Madness. And I actually thought first he was referring to a film that had come out in 2021 and was a very low budget film.
Go on
Vimeo.
Vimeo, is it free?
Well, I watched it in 2021, so I hope it is free, because guys, if it ain't free, you're gonna face a copyright thing, I think, because you can't use the monster from Cloverfield and cut it out and put it in your film if it's not free. So I
can't wait to see this. This sounds amazing.
Look, the only thing I'm going to say is like at the Mountains of Madness, as we've talked about, is such a big scale film. And yes, you can do it small scale, but you have to, like John Carpenter, take the liberty of, he combined the thing from outer space with the concept of At the Mountains of Madness, which is almost genius, but very clever. But he also had this thing called a budget. So the issue is that I understand that it's a film, and and I don't think it's actually paid. I think you can just go on Vimeo and watch it. So, because that's where I watched it. Because I
need to watch it. It sounds amazing.
I think
also isn't the thing. I mean, John Carpenter made movies which were on a relatively low budget for the main, but the thing, he upped his budget considerably.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Like, you can tell that that's, again, it's hard to, without waffling on, but I can fully understand these mateys making this film, and it probably was like, we love this, we love the story, we just want to make it, but I don't know. I don't want to sound mean but it's just like, I don't know. If you're gonna watch it, just watch it for yourself. I mean, I showed Rhea the trailer for it because, again, before coming on, I was like, this trailer, I think this is what's going to be mentioned. And Rhea immediately was like, "Why is the snow green screened on really badly?" And it was there was a shot in it which is why I brought it up a minute ago. There was a shot in the trailer where it's the shot in Cloverfield where when before the guy with the camera gets eaten and it hovers over him.
Yeah.
And what they've done is they've just cut around it and put their background, and it's like, you can't do that. It's like, I get it if it's free and you're like,
next week's main feature. This
it's like I get it if you're making it, you just want to make it for entertainment, and fair play to them, because I think we've said this before on the podcast. If you make a film, fair play, regardless if it's good or bad, you made it. And a lot of people don't even get to that stage. They stare at a screen and say, "I'm going to," and they never do. So fair play, but you're like, just, I don't know. It's we said it. We said it earlier. You should have had it in the fucking oven for maybe another 8 years.
I also feel like just doing that.
Yeah, that's me.
Just like as you, I keep I haven't seen this, so it's probably bad for me to pass judgment in this way. But if what you're saying is true, that they cut and pasted the Cloverfield monster, it's just things like that. It just shows a complete lack of one, imagination, but also motivation, where you're just like, okay, we're not imaginative enough to think of an alternative, nor can we be bothered enough to think of an alternative to this. Like, even if it's like, I don't know, a Jaws-like way of just like not showing the monster and having it like do it around you. Well, again, I haven't read the At the Mountains of Madness, I don't know if that happens, but still, just it does aggravate me.
Well, like I'll put the trailer in the group chat, so like can watch. Yeah. But all I would say is like they have like other clips in it which you can tell. Which, look, this is not a crime, and when you don't have a budget, I completely get this. When you're going on to like YouTube and you want a creature in your film, and you don't do modeling on your computer, and you go on to free green screen effects, and it's not going to look the best, but you put them in and they are in the film. But I can forgive that more and say, oh, well, okay,
how long
right.
Is it? How long is
it? It's a feature. It's a feture. It's like an hour and 20 minutes. But just when
that film should be about 3 hours long.
Well, it's just for me when doing that side of it, of going, we can't afford to make these, so we're going to, go onto some free sites, take some green screens of monsters, put them in. It's like, fine, whatever, it's all for fun, and they probably enjoyed making it, which is the main thing. But I draw the line when you take a clip from Cloverfield and almost go like, whoa, look at our monster. It's like, no, I can look at Cloverfield's monster that you've just darkened it and cut the background and added shit snow effects over the top. It's like that. And it's that thing of what we were saying about rushed. Like, if whoever's going to do it, if you're going to make At the Mountains of Madness, I hate to break it to you, you need a budget, you need time, and similar to how John Carpenter did it, if you're not going to do an actual adaptation of that story, you've got to figure out a way that you can do it as a new concept. You can't just go, I'll steal from Cloverfield,
It's a massive world, isn't it? don't understand. You can think it's even possible without a massive budget. I just
No.
don't understand. To do it justice, it's going to need a massive budget.
Well, because another thing as well, really quickly, just as a last note, but like a lot of people give shit on Prometheus, which look, I'm not saying it's a perfect film, but Prometheus is very much a different adaptation of At the Mountains of Madness. It very much is in a very different way, but it is still the same kind of concept of, you know, travelers investigating new heights and finding out these weird secrets of what lies in the mountain. But again, it has a budget to do it. You can't just go. Yeah, I'll just leave it there. Just, you know, good effort. You made a film. Thumbs up.
I'm going to watch it tonight. I think I'm going to go in there tonight and watch it.
Yeah, I'll send you. Like I said, I'll send you the trailer because on the trailer they have a link to it. But it was done in 2021, and I think I ended up watching it just because I was searching H.P. Lovecraft different novels. I think it was around the time
that's your favorite because it's one of mine. So
no, it's been my favorite since uni. Like I've H.P. Lovecraft. As much as I might disagree with the person, I love his literature.
What's he done?
How do we say this on this podcast without getting blocked?
Well, yeah,
he had a cat. He had a cat, and no, it's getting there. Isn't it? He had a cat, and it was named very much something I can't say on the podcast.
Yeah, well, wasn't he basically like a sort of a white supremacist?
Yeah, he definitely had racist tendencies, if not maybe going out there to say.
What's that guy do? Was his cat racist?
No, he had. Let me look. Everyone can get it.
My cats are not racist.
No, let me put it this way in a simple form, we're saying as little as I can for people to catch on. He had a black cat.
Okay.
Which he named a certain thing, which he wasn't, and this is the thing, I do not agree with that concept in any way, shape, or form. But his literature and how he wrote horror and his stories was essentially the fear of the unknown, which I think, you know, as a horror concept, that to me has always been my favorite kind of concept. That fear of not knowing.
A very old-fashioned view on certain things, but
it was also interesting. I should point out that it's been cancelled now, but there was a series called Lovecraft County.
Lovecraft County.
See that,
which was quite interesting because it's like sort of following in the footsteps of Jordan Peele. They sort of take a horror from a very sort of political and racial angle, where they set it, I think it's in the 40s or 50s, set in this very sort of like prejudicial time, but it's a very sort of subversive in a way because it's taking Lovecraftian elements but also with this racial angle. It's almost like, okay, we'll take from the stories from Lovecraft, but we'll also criticize him as well.
Which and it was such a shame because it was, like you said, it was cancelled, which I actually really did like the first season, and it had the actor who is in Marvel films now, who plays
Jonathan Majors, isn't it?
Who's going to play Kang and has played He Who Remains, you know, in Marvel. So, and it was a shame. If you haven't seen it, I recommend watch the first season because it's actually pretty decent. But that's everything for me.
Brilliant. Ewan?
Yeah, so as I said at the top of the show, I've been sort of rewatching I've been mainly rewatching films that I really, really liked the first time I watched them, to see if they stack up and see if I can put them in my top 10 list. So I watched First Reformed again, which is a Paul Schrader movie from 2017. First Reformed. It's an interesting one because most people know Paul Schrader from writing with Martin Scorsese. So he wrote Taxi Driver and Raging Bull and Last Temptation of Christ as well. And he's directed his own films as well. And he tends to have a very kind of existential outlook on life and his work. So most things are about death and existence and the philosophy of that and stuff like that. And First Reformed, I think it might be my favorite thing that he's ever done. It's actually very, very like Taxi Driver. it's about a priest of this very small church somewhere in America, played by Ethan Hawke, who is he starts writing a diary and he starts writing his thoughts, and you sort of realize he has a very low opinion of himself, and he's not sure about what he's doing. And then he suddenly talks to this guy who's in a heavy state of despair, and then it transpires that the reason he's in despair is because he's a sort of a global warming activist, and he's in despair because he realizes by 2050 the world will essentially be over, or that's how he perceives it, and he's got all these charts and stuff. And then you realize all of this he has like a 10-minute dialogue. It's quite a long dialogue scene between the two of them, and you start to realize that the priest is suddenly absorbing all this information and suddenly realizing, that could very well happen. And it's all about the sort of like the poles of like hope and despair, and how we sort of go between them very often. And as the film continues, you realize that the priest is going further and further into despair until it goes into quite a Taxi Driver like ending. Or quite in that vein, and you sort of look at the things around him, and it's sort of like his church is very small, and he has help, or sort of like financial help, from an even bigger church like down the road. And it's a really upsetting. I mean, I'm not religious at all, or I'm a massive atheist, and I don't really agree with religion in any way. But it's really upsetting.
Very religious podcast, this.
Yeah. But it's really upsetting when you compare like this priest who comes from this really small church, like it's like really out of the way, you can't see it, and then he enters this massive place where there's like a television at like massive television showing everything, and it's like pews for about 1,000 people, and it's like, you know, swimming in wealth, whereas he's like barely making it through. It's a really beautiful film, shot in 1:3 aspect ratio, which I think is the same as Lighthouse. I'm not entirely sure. I think Lighthouse might have been slightly more compact, but it's sort of it's a really interesting film, and quite spiritual. And I have noticed that with a lot of my favorite films that I've put on the list, it tends to be a sort of common thing of dreams, death, and religion. Those tend to be the three common factors, which is probably why my next film, which is Portrait of a Lady on Fire, didn't quite make the cut. Again, very good film, made by Celine Sciamma, who's a French filmmaker, who also did things like Petit Maman and Tomboy. She's very much a sort of French indie director. And this film kind of broke her through in terms of like the global stage. And it's a period drama. It's about this painter who's assigned this to paint this woman's portrait, because and this portrait would be sent off to a man in Italy in order for her to be married to this man, so that he knows what he's going in for. And this sprouts into a romance between the painter and the woman. And it's a really lovely romance story, and quite evocative. And it's very much about how like sort of the difference between how men perceive women and how women perceive women, and that's really interesting as well. It's also a very sexy film. I have to admit that it just is. But it's really, I mean, characters talking about art in a really profound way is like, it is so sort of lovely to me, especially when it's good. Sometimes
I thought you were going to say sexy. I thought you were going to
no.
Characters talking like that is so. It's so.
If I had a kink, that would probably be part of it.
What's your kink? Talk about the art.
But I really like, because also the cinematography is just incredible. I mean, you almost by obligation, if you're going to make a film about art and artists, you have to make sure the cinematography is good, and thankfully it is.
And sexy.
And sexy. It's very sexy.
As Kevin said, and sexy.
Yeah. But it's really good, and I recommend.
This is a sexy podcast tonight.
It's really sexy.
Well, we got to calm down these levels of sex, guys.
Yeah. We got to reduce the tension.
Too sexy.
We got to release the tension.
So yeah, moving on from the sex. I also watched Ikaru, which I have put into my top 10, which
Okay.
is a Akira Kurosawa film from 1952. It's a really good, again, as I said from the start, it's either has to be death, dreams, or religion, and this one's very much focused on death. It's a very simple story, actually. It's about a man who's diagnosed with cancer, and he sort of goes over his life, and he realizes that much of it wasn't living at all, because he sort of works in this very bureaucratic office where he's like the chief, and it's a government building, and he sort of like okays certain things to go through. And there's this one thing that comes across is like the building of a playground, and he like forwards it to like the Parks and Recreation Department, who forward it to like sewage, who forward it to everywhere else, and before long, like people have forgotten about it, and nothing's done at all. And after he gets his diagnosis, he suddenly needs a new lease of life, and he sort of pours it into that playground. And it's a really poignant film, and it is one that really kind of like stays with you for a long time. It's one of those, and it's funny because I actually wonder if because obviously the trope of characters getting cancer is pretty much ubiquitous now. It's pretty much everywhere in films. But I wonder if it was as common in the 50s, not in terms of like did everyone get cancer, but in terms of like that being used as a trope. And I doubt Hollywood used it at the time, which is why it's sort of it feels so. I mean, it feels quite present, obviously, but it's sort of it's a beautiful film, and just from the very, and it does this sort of twist, not in terms of like how we usually use the word twist, but in terms of like how Kurosawa structures the narrative. He does this thing in the third act, which is very, very risky in terms of the narrative, but it works so well, and I recommend for people who haven't seen it do. And then it's also one of those films that's filmed so incredibly well that anything you watch after it is just like
Doesn't live
you
up
want.
to...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think after that, I watched Gilmore Girls to sort of like calm myself down, and you're just like, why are they not filming it in like pristine black and white and just like from like so many angles? Because obviously,
it's messaging to the Gilmore Girls. Why
Yeah,
didn't you
yeah,
film it
why?
this way?
Why didn't you film it like Ikaru?
Motherfuckers.
Yeah, so that will be going on my top 10 list. I'm not sure about my next one, which I watched, which was initially on the list. I rewatched Life of Brian last night, which is obviously an amazing film and probably the funniest ever made. But I've watched it so many times that I still laugh at everything, but I can't treat it like a film anymore, because because when I was younger, when I was about 10 or 11, I just watch it over and over again to the point where a scene would finish and I'd rewind the scene, and then just so I had it in my head, and I memorized pretty much every scene. And when I watch it now, again, the scenes are brilliant and they're inspiring, and some jokes are dated, which is understandable because it was made in 1977, but it's still really, really funny. And again, part of the sort of the triad of my list is religion, and I think it scrutinizes religion so wonderfully.
Have you on YouTube? You can see it on YouTube, but if you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend it. Where John Cleese and I forget his name, Michael Palin, talk to the is it the Catholic Church about how they basically have a debate on a talk show of is the Life of Brian like insulting to the Catholic Church, and it's just amazing.
I would recommend that to most people, and it's I think Malcolm Muggeridge, who was quite a sort of Christian journalist, and it's funny as well because they're almost like the worst spokespeople because there are plenty of religious people who speak very eloquently about their faith and very intelligently about their faith, but in this case, people there are lots of Christians I'm sure who like Life of Brian. I mean, my grandparents excluded, but it's I mean that interview is so interesting because you can see that the Christian people who they interviewed are just so angry, and they haven't even watched the film. They just know what's around the film. They perceive it to be taking the piss out of the life of Jesus, which it isn't. There are aspects of that, but it's very much about Brian. That's the joke, really, is that this isn't about the life of Jesus. This is about the life of Brian, who is like born at the same time as Jesus, but just around. And it's more, it does take stabs at religion, like the way that a lot of especially at that time, religious people would just like latch onto anything without evidence, or a lot of things without evidence. And there's that amazing scene, one of my favorite scenes in cinema, where Brian is being sort of crowded by these people who think he's the next Messiah, and he manages to escape them, and he goes, "He's gone. He's been taken up," and it's like, "Oh no, there he is, there he is." And it's just again, it kind of stabs that thing. It's like if you look closer, you can see that evidence is there, and something to disprove it is there. Obviously, I'm not having go at sort of any of that now.
No.
But I think the argument is solid, and I think it's a brilliant. It's a brilliant film to demonstrate that.
Meaning of Life did a similar thing, which I that's my personal favorite out of their films, because I actually prefer their TV like shorts, comedy sketches. But yeah, Meaning of Life was my favorite, and I'm surprised that people didn't have kind of the same sort of outrage to it, because that kind of covers not only religion, but it covers like, aspects of life, ideals of life, and a big one, which is life after death sort of thing. So I
also think there are more scenes in Meaning of Life that obviously I still find it funny, but there are more scenes in Meaning of Life that disgust me more, and for better reasons, than in Life of Brian. I mean, being sick,
I love that one. It's like,
everywhere.
Would you like another mint? He's like, go. What do you want off the menu? I'll have the lot.
When he enters, it's just like he's like, bucket, better get a bucket. I'm gonna throw up.
Bucket, throw up.
And it's just it's great, and I think Terry Gilliam got a best director from Cannes for that film.
What Meaning of Life?
Yeah, Meaning of Life.
My favorite sketch from Meaning of Life, which I think deep down, which I might have spoken to about this with you, Ewan, in uni. But one of my favorite sketches from Meaning of Life is when Death shows up, and then it's like, how did we all die? And it's like, the fish. Oh no, that's it. No,
the salmon moose.
That's it. The salmon moose is like, I didn't have the salmon moose.
Yeah.
But that in itself could be a great horror film if it was done seriously. So it's one of my favorite sketches, but one of also a concept.
I mean, there are things as well, like having sex in front of the class, which again is really funny, but it's so like. But the one which I almost even as we're doing this podcast, where we watch films which are full of gore, blood, guts, whatever, I still recoil at the scene in Meaning of Life where they're taking his liver.
The liver. Can we have your liver?
Yeah, can we have your liver? No, well, I'm using it. Well, you signed up to the organ donation, so and they just stab him, and it's a horrific. It's again very funny. Have
you ever seen Thompson? Oh, I can't even say Tompkinson's School Days.
No,
Michael Palin. Okay.
Oh, I've heard of it. Sorry, yes, I have heard
please watch it for the next podcast, because me and my dad, we cry with laughter at one bit, and it's the claw.
Right.
I don't want to say anything. Just there's not a lot of episodes. I think there's like 5 in total, which are all for half an hour, 45 minutes, and then you can access them on Internet Plus. But please just watch it. If you like Monty Python, Michael Palin did something there which me and Dad, whenever it's like, should we watch oh no, sorry, it's Ripping Yarns. That's Ripping Yarns is the series, but Tompkinson's School Days is the first episode. But please watch it, because no matter what time of day it is, if that gets brought up, it's like, whack it on, and it's so funny.
Because I've been intrigued, because obviously I'm sort of intrigued by what the other Pythons did. I mean, obviously John Cleese, after Python, he did Fawlty Towers, which again is one of the best sitcoms ever made.
It's fantastic. And
then Gilliam became, a decent filmmaker in his own right. I haven't seen much of his films, actually. I haven't seen Brazil, or I saw 12 Monkeys. That was quite. It's quite interesting with this film. it's quite interesting with his films because it's such sensory overload that it's always like so like overpowering. But he did the animations for most of Python, so that's understandable. But also I've been playing more of Stray, which is that game with a cat.
Yeah.
And it's gotten really interesting actually. When I was playing it, I thought it was almost like a short game that was in like a pathway towards something bigger, much like Portal was, the Portal 2. But you're sort of it becomes really weird, which I really like. It literally becomes there's a scene where you're going through this like metal door, and you go through this sort of cavernous room, and the walls are like massive eyeballs. Like massive eyeballs that follow you around the room, like some sort of like if like Salvador Dali met David Cronenberg in a kind of body horror-esque way. And I was like, this is completely unexpected. It's already set in a sort of cyberpunk world, but I thought it would be more like, I don't know, more relaxing, but it turns out to be much more twisted than I expected. I would say twisted, just a bit more sort of horrific than I expected. Which I'm really enjoying. I didn't realize it would like be this surprising. But no, it's worth getting. It's good.
This has been a thought on my head just as you've been speaking. Don't ask me why, but Kev, if ever in future we end up in a Stranger Things scenario where we have to go to the Upside Down, we go to yours and we play the guitar on top of wherever you're in, because your guitar will be in the Upside Down. Just Eddie Munson it up. I just caught eye of it. It was like, he's got a guitar pinned up.
The one.
Yeah,
PRS.
Yeah. Just sorry, it just reminded me of Stranger Things. For any audio listeners, there's a guitar up on Kev's wall, which is very reminiscent of
hanging up on my wall there with Jason's mask hung off it. So,
wear the mask as you play. Just
love to. It's getting very dark in my office. Are we done? Are we got anything else to?
Are you done, Ewan?
Are you done? Yeah, Ewan.
It's a great way to break up with someone. That.
Yeah.
Are we done?
Ewan?
A question mark. Are we done? Is this it? Are we done? Fuck it, go on then. We're done.
Great episode.
You're done.
It's really, really good. Don't know what you're missing, Jess. So next week we're back with our episode 89. Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, is it?
Yeah.
It's so dark in my office now, I can't see anything. So the Dream Child. We've got Dan's hot pick of Cold Prey from Norway, 2006. I think so. You want to follow us on Twitter, it's the Bones Horror Pod. We nearly have 1,000. I think we're about 3 or 4 off. 1,000 followers. YouTube account, obviously, Bones Horror Podcast. I think that's just gone over 100, which is quite big for us, really. The last couple of months have been huge. So get following us on there. And we don't talk about Facebook. So Instagram is the Bones Horror Pod. Email us at the boneshorrorpod@gmail.com. I think that's about it, really. And I'm looking forward to next week. I think we are doing next week. Are we all available?
I probably won't be because I'll probably be in Wales, I think.
Wales.
Wales.
In Wales.
How long are you going for?
I think about a week, actually.
A week in Wales?
Proper holiday, yeah.
Are you going North Wales? You won't be going to South Wales, are you?
I think it is somewhere in North Wales. I mean,
I think people going on holiday.
I was trying to describe this to someone the other day, and the only thing I can come up with was that it was near a castle, which is a lot of places in Wales.
Yeah, that narrows it down.
My brother lives in Wales. He lives in Swansea, which is not the most pleasant place on the planet.
See if you're going near the smallest house. I believe it's in the UK.
World.
No, in the UK, there's because also my grandma used to have like a caravan sort of thing in Wales, and it's near like this amazing waterfall and like really lovely area, right next to like a beach. But you go to like the harbour, and there's the UK is one of at least the UK's smallest house, which it's like more of a tour thing now. I don't think you can. It's not lived in. You can. But if you're near there, see if you're near there. It's baffling that someone actually lived in it. because I'd hate it.
There you go.
There we
We're
go.
Are you saying you and small, or what are you?
I mean, that
Yes.
would be true.
That's exactly what I was trying to get across. You are
I'm 6'5",
small, Ewan.
so I'm
Get to the
6'5",
house.
so how's that going to affect
You're
me?
6'5", Kev. Jesus,
Yeah.
I'll be very short compared to you. I'm at least a foot shorter, or about
Are
a foot
you?
shorter. Yeah,
So
I'm
my
about
wife
5'6".
is as well.
I'm
My wife's
5'5".
smaller than that.
5, 10, or 11 for me.
That's a good height.
Short king.
Good height.
It's a
You
good
stood up
height,
now,
Lawrence.
Larry. You stood up, Larry.
I'm the middle ground.
So yeah, we're look forward to next week with episode 89, the Dream Child. So yeah, I think I'm looking forward to that. I can't remember it being that pleasurable, but I am looking forward to it. So yeah, see you all next week, guys.
See ya.
Later.
Thanks for
Bye,
watching.
bye,
Bye bye.
bye.